When I witnessed my nanny solve a 300 million crisis in seconds, I couldn't believe my eyes. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension. I could feel my pulse racing, my heart pounding like a wild drum. The office was chaotic. Papers were flying, phones were ringing nonstop, and the wall clock ticked louder than ever before. It felt like the world around me was shrinking, collapsing under the weight of that looming disaster. In the middle of it all stood my nanny, Stella. She was a petite woman, always dressed in her cheerful florals, her silver hair neatly pinned up. But that day, she transformed into something fierce. I was just a scared teenager, lost in the storm brewing around me. This crisis wasn't just about numbers, it was about our family, our future, everything we cherished. My mother was sitting in the corner, her hands shaking, tears pooling in her eyes. My father was pacing, his jaw clenched tight, the worry etched deep into his brow. Stella, who usually guided me through life's smaller challenges, was now stepping up. Where did she find that strength? I could see the fire in her blue eyes as she surveyed the room, calculating, strategizing. The chaos around her seemed to melt away as she moved, her hands trembling with an anxious energy. "We can fix this," she declared, her voice steady among the panic. The figures we owed huge, unfathomable. 300 million. I felt sick. How could anyone possibly resolve something that insurmountable? My breath caught in my throat, the silence of disbelief echoing loud. She pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and began scribbling furiously on a napkin. How was she staying so calm? Everyone else was losing their minds, but she was a lighthouse in this dark storm. For so long, I thought of her as just an everyday caretaker, someone to make cookies and help with homework. But now, she was something more. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me, a cocktail of fear and hope. I didn't want to believe. Yet, something deep inside urged me to trust her. I held my breath, nervously glancing at her as the seconds slipped away, feeling the gravity of our situation pin us all to the ground. Then it happened. She threw down the napkin and looked around the room. "I have a plan." It felt like the world paused. Every pair of eyes fixed on her, hearts suspended. The tension was unbearable. Could this really be our way out, or just a fleeting flicker of hope? I needed to know what she was thinking, but the air was stilled with disbelief, and I was too stunned to speak. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next few days blurred into a whirlwind of frantic meetings and desperate calls to investors. Stella's plan had ignited a strange mix of hope and apprehension. With each passing hour, our family clung to her as if she were the last thread in a tapestry unraveling before our eyes. I watched from the sidelines, caught between awe and disbelief. How could someone who spent so much time baking cookies and leaving notes in my lunch suddenly be the beacon of strength in our darkest hour? The morning after her bold declaration, Stella gathered us at the kitchen table, the familiar scent of brewed coffee wafting through the air, mingling with a hint of anxiety. My parents sat across from her, their expressions a tumult of skepticism and yearning. "We can't afford to wait," she insisted, her voice unwavering. "We have to act quickly. This isn't just about the money. It's about what it means for our family." I felt a knot of uncertainty tightening in my stomach. But what if it doesn't work? I ventured, the question slipping out before I could stop it. It was a legitimate fear, one that weighed down the room like lead. My mother's eyes shifted to the floor, and my father's jaw clenched even tighter. "It has to work," Stella replied, her gaze cutting through my trepidation. "We have each other, and together we can fight this." Her words rang in my ears, and for a moment, I contemplated her unwavering hope. I began to see her not only as my nanny but as a warrior maneuvering through the battlefield. Yet, it didn't erase the gnawing worry that wrapped around my heart, a fear that our home, our lives, could dissolve into mere memories at any moment. As Stella walked us through her intricate strategy, I watched her tap into resources we never knew she had. She secured meetings with potential investors, forged relationships with powerful allies, people I had only heard my parents discuss in hushed tones. It was mesmerizing to see her in this new light, but every small victory was met with an avalanche of anxiety. On one particularly tense evening, I overheard my mother sobbing in the bathroom. I approached the door, my heart heavy. "Mom?" I called gently, fearing the answer. There was a pause before she opened the door, her face a mess of tears. "Oh honey, I'm just so scared," she admitted, collapsing into my arms. "I know," I whispered, holding her as tightly as I could. "I'm scared too." In that moment, we were bound together by a shared fear that ran deeper than any words could express. The very foundation we had built was crumbling beneath our feet, but suddenly, a glimmer of kindness emerged. A neighbor from down the street, Mrs. Lawson, knocked on our door bearing a tray of cookies, one of Stella's recipes. "I thought you might need these," she said with a soft smile, eyes flickering between worried lines on our faces. It was such a small gesture, but it brought warmth into the suffocating atmosphere. I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me, kindled by that simple act of compassion. As the days turned into sleepless nights, we partnered with Stella's plan. Each step forward horrified as much as it thrilled us. My father, once a pillar of assurance, began to falter, his decisions growing erratic. I could see the worry lines multiply on his forehead with each passing day. "What if we fail?" he would mutter, staring out the window as if the answer eluded him in the horizon sunset, but Stella was undeterred, determined to prove to us all that we could rise from the ashes. With every meeting she arranged, our little family stood closer together, rallying behind her like soldiers in a fight we had never asked for. But then, as the sun set on another turbulent day, an unexpected email popped up on my screen. It was from a prominent investor, one I had overheard my parents discuss in reverence. The subject line read, "Let's talk," followed by a sudden rush of exhilaration that washed over me. I could hardly breathe. Was this the breakthrough we had been hoping for, or another crushed expectation waiting to happen? I glanced toward the door, knowing that it would lead me back to my family, back to Stella, who was still slaving away in the kitchen, abolishing the chaos one evenly baked cookie at a time. At that moment, I didn't know if I would break the news or keep it to myself, knowing that hope could just as easily be a harbinger of heartache. And what if something, or someone, didn't want us to succeed? The ominous thought clung to me, casting shadows in the corners of my mind. As I stood there, caught between elation and dread, I realized that the stakes were rising, and with them, my heart raced into the tumultuous unknown. The next morning, the sunlight trickled through the kitchen window, painting everything in a golden hue that felt almost surreal given the emotional storm brewing within our home. I had kept my discovery quiet, letting the thrill and the weight of that email settle upon me like a suffocating blanket. The sheer possibility it held felt precious and fragile, and I wasn't sure how to share it without shattering the carefully maintained balance of hope and despair that had become our daily reality. Stella, ever in motion, chopped vegetables for dinner while humming a tune I recognized from my childhood. It was a melody infused with warmth, the kind she would often sing to soothe my troubles away. Today, however, it felt like a stark contrast to the undercurrent of anxiety coursing through our home. My parents sat at the table, eyes locked on the myriad of papers scattered before them, a testament to the relentless battles fought these past weeks. "Breakfast is almost ready," Stella called, her voice laced with a cheerfulness that was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. I watched as she danced through the kitchen, each movement infused with purpose. Somehow, she balanced hope on her shoulders as if it were a sacred offering to the universe, daring it to answer. I took a deep breath, still clutching my phone, the unopened email threatening to drown me in confusion. "Stella, can I talk to you for a moment?" The words spilled out with a hesitant urgency. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she wiped her hands on a kitchen towel, joining me in the living room. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" There was a softness in her demeanor that made me feel safe, as though the world outside couldn't reach us here. I hesitated, uncertain how to begin. "I got an email last night from James Larkin's office," I finally blurted out, the name hanging in the air like a gravitational force. Stella's expression shifted, curiosity morphing into focused intensity. "He wants to talk?" she asked, the lilt of disbelief mingling with a spark of excitement. I nodded, and the corners of her mouth curled upwards, lighting up her face. Yeah, but I trailed off. What if it's just a courtesy? What if he's just stringing us along? The doubt seeped out of me, the edges sharp with fear. Sweetheart, any conversation with him is a step forward. We need to take every opportunity that comes our way, she encouraged, clasping my hands in hers. When is the meeting? Tomorrow, I replied, the realization pressing against my ribs like a weight. Well, prepare for it together. I'll help you, she assured me, her confidence wrapping around me as a protective cocoon. For a fleeting moment, I felt an exhilarating rush, the idea that we could seize this sliver of hope and turn it into something more. But as the day wore on, the knot in my stomach tightened. I witnessed more signs of strain in my father, who had taken to pacing the house, his nervous energy radiating like a low hum of uncertainty. I caught snippets of his murmured conversations with my mother, words like failure and impossible slipping through the cracks of our once sturdy home. When dinner time arrived, the tension was nearly palpable. The aroma of spaghetti filled the air, yet no one seemed to have an appetite. Stella, ever perceptive, made a point to serve everyone a generous portion, her reassuring smile inviting us to relish the warmth of the moment. Let's share what we're grateful for today, she suggested, a gentle insistence in her tone that prompted a collective yet reluctant nod from us all. My mother began hesitantly, speaking of the fleeting, joyful moments she managed to carve out, like the early morning sunshine filtering through the curtains. My father followed suit, his voice steadying as he mentioned the support of neighbors and friends, which transformed into an unexpected lifeline. As the gratitude flowed around the table, I found my voice rising to join them, recounting my admiration for Stella's boundless energy and enthusiasm. I'm grateful that we're all together in this, making every effort to turn things around, I said, though the weight of the next day's meeting loomed heavily over me. When finally, everyone fell silent, I caught a glimpse of concern darting between my father and Stella. Was he beginning to lean on her? The tension had shifted, and what once felt like our last bulwark against despair was channeling into something deeper, something more precarious. That night, I was unable to sleep, tossing and turning under the weight of uncertainty. The note from James echoed in my mind, taunting me with what-ifs and maybes. But in my restless wandering, I heard a noisy, soft whispering from the kitchen. Curiosity piqued, I crept down the darkened hallway, the cool wooden floor beneath my feet grounding me in the present as I approached the archway. Peering around, I caught sight of Stella, half lit by the moonlight, diligently working on something at the table. My heart raced with dread as I edged closer to catch snippets of her conversation on the phone, a muffled voice on the other end igniting a cold wave of alarm within me. Everything is in motion, but my concern is, she paused, the words swallowed by the stillness of the night. I strained to hear more. No, I won't let them escape. We're too close now. My breath caught in my throat as unease flooded my veins. Stella was not just our beacon, she might be entangled in something far graver than I had imagined. What was she keeping from us? As I backed away, retreating into the shadows, I felt the world around me tilt slightly, the chilling wind of revelation unfurling ominously towards our fragile future. The daylight crept reluctantly into the room, stealing away the cover of darkness that had shrouded my troubled thoughts. I lay in my bed, grappling with the fragments of the night before. The sinister undertones of Stella's phone call echoed in my mind like the haunting refrain of a song I couldn't quite place. I tried to silence the relentless questioning that thrummed within me. What did she mean? Who was on the other end of that line? And why did it feel like the ground beneath us was crumbling? Breakfast felt like an exercise in pretense. While my parents sat across from each other, their eyes hollow, I could only bear witnessing the silence that settled over our table like a heavy fog. My thoughts ricocheted between the dread of the upcoming meeting and the uncertainty cast by Stella's cryptic conversation. I forced down my oatmeal in an effort to blend into the fabric of normalcy, but each bite turned into a reminder of the rift growing in our once cohesive team. Are you okay? My mother's suddenly concerned voice broke through my reverie, pulling my gaze up from the bowl. Her brow was furrowed, her worry painted plainly across her face. Yeah, just tired, I answered, forcing a smile that felt as heavy as an anvil. My father, focusing on the newspaper as if it were a lifebuoy in a turbulent sea, didn't look up. This morning's silence felt different, sharper, like the world was poised on the edge of a knife. I glanced toward the clock. Time was moving, yet stood still all at once. Moments later, there came a rhythmic knock at the door, the sound splitting the tension in the air. I exchanged a glance with my parents before rising to answer. My heart raced as I opened it to reveal a delivery man holding a large, neatly stacked box. "Special delivery for a Miss Stella Harrington," he announced with a grin that momentarily chased away the shadows huddled over our home. "You're gonna want to take a look at this, Stella?" I called out, watching confusion flit across my parents' faces. As she approached, the smile that graced her features felt like a flickering candle, a reminder of hope amidst uncertainty. "What is it?" she asked, her voice squeezing a knot of anxious curiosity into my chest. "Not sure, ma'am, just that it came marked urgent." He gestured toward the box, then retreated, laptop resting against his shoulder as he continued with his deliveries. Stella knelt beside the package, her fingers deftly tearing away the tape and unraveling the cardboard flaps. Inside lay a glossy binder, its cover emblazoned with the crest of a prestigious legal firm, and beside it, a flash drive. As she pulled them out, I noticed that her eyes brightened. "This is it!" she exclaimed, almost breathless, the lilt of excitement evident in her voice. "What do you mean?" I pressed, torn between excitement and the fierce grip of unease. My mother joined us, her eyes scanning the cover, a spark of hope flickering in her gaze, while my father hung back, arms crossed, a frown etched deeply onto his face. This is what we've been waiting for." Stella's fingers danced across the folder, flipping through pages filled with images, documents, and notes. "It's the research and strategies I requested about our legal options in dealing with the Larkins," she explained, conviction surging through her voice. "We can finally turn this around." I felt a rush of breath I didn't realize I had been holding. "You ordered this?" The words tumbled out before I could stop myself, mingled with astonishment and skepticism. "Stella, how could you?" "I can explain everything," she interjected, her voice rising in fervor. "I didn't want to worry you or your parents. You have so much on your plate already. And what else have you been doing?" My father's tone was clipped, the edge of doubt sharpening his inquiry. "Researching, reaching out, trying to find a way to help. This is our chance," she responded, her fingers brushing the documents as though they were sacred. I marveled at her unwavering resolve, yet the foundations of doubt refused to wane. In that moment of uncertainty, my eyes caught sight of the flash. Drive glimmering, yet ominous with potential revelations. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "What's on that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the question hanging heavily in the air. Stella locked her gaze with mine, searching for reassurance. "Let's find out," she replied, her determination palpable. We gathered around the laptop, my parents hovering uncertainly, shadows cloaked in the dazzling light of this newfound opportunity. Stella plugged in the flash drive and opened the files, spreadsheets, legal briefs, and a chilling video began to load. I felt the tension electrify the air, a collective breath held in anticipation, but as the image flickered on the screen and words began to scroll down, I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The stark figure of a new player entered the arena, someone I recognized. It was Ethan Rourke, our family's former financial advisor, his face marred by a conflict of interest. He was the very person who had guided my parents toward this precipice of despair. "Why is he involved?" I gasped, looking at Stella for answers, panic rising in my chest. She shook her head, her expression a mixture of dread and determination. "We need to know what this means. We can't face this alone." But before I could process her words, the screen began to glitch, the video stuttering before a message popped up: "Access denied, link expired." A wave of confusion crashed over mere chance, so close, now beyond our reach. I glanced at my parents, their faces pale, hidden behind a veil of ominous uncertainty. From the depths of my heart, I could hear the whispered truth: hope often walks hand in hand with betrayal. We were on the edge of a precipice, with darkness swirling beneath us and light dimming in the distance. With every second ticking away, I realized, we were not just fighting to reclaim our future, we were setting ourselves against something much darker than we ever imagined. The journey was about to descend into a chaos that neither Stella nor I could have foreseen. The tension hung thick in the air as the screen faded into static, a digital mirage of our hopes shattered before us. I felt my chest tighten, the weight of uncertainty sinking like lead. "What now?" I whispered, more to myself than to anyone. Stella's fingers danced across the keyboard, trying to restore the glimmer of opportunity we had just glimpsed. "I can try to retrieve the files," she murmured, her voice laced with urgency. But I could see the way her shoulders tensed, as if she too was aware of how thin the thread we were clinging to had become. My mother stepped back, pressing a hand against her forehead. Ethan Rourke is trouble. He was responsible for. Her voice trailed off, the words laden with unspoken fear. My father crossed his arms tighter, his demeanor shifting beneath the pressure of our every interaction. I never associated him with the Larkins. Why would he? My voice faltered as the realization hit me like a cold wave. He was the one who pushed Dad to take those risky investments. He knew what he was doing. The betrayal ran deeper than I had anticipated, a gnarled root tangled in the soil of our trust. Stella, you need to be careful, my father finally spoke, his voice a hard-edged protective shield. If he's involved, then this goes further than we thought. We're putting ourselves in danger by trying to dig deeper. But Stella lifted her chin defiantly, determination etching her features. If we back down now, we lose everything. We need to fight. I could see the spark in her hazel eyes, my heart warring against the fear that had begun to take residence within me. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door, pulling us from our chaotic whirlwind. The sound felt ominous, another weight added to our already strained reality. I exchanged a nervous glance with my mom, who slowly approached the door. When she finally opened it, I didn't expect the sight of our neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, a sweet elderly woman known for her baked goods and quiet kindness. But now, her frail hand clutched a baked pie, its golden crust glistening in the light. I brought you something to brighten your day, she said, her voice soothing yet edged with concern. I've been watching your family, dear. You seem troubled. She looked at me, her gaze penetrating yet gentle. I felt a wave of unexpected warmth wash over me. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I hesitated, unsure of how to express the heaviness I carried. Anything I can do to help, you just let me know. I know how hard it can be to confront what lies ahead. You are stronger than you think, she offered, a glimmer of hope shining in her eyes. Thanks, I said, appreciating the respite from our spiraling reality, however brief it might be. In that moment, the gentle kindness felt like a balm to my frayed spirit, a small spark igniting amidst the smothering darkness. As Mrs. Thompson turned to leave, I noticed her linger for a moment. And sweetie, she paused, her tone dipping into something more serious. Trust your instincts. Sometimes the most gentle souls bear the heaviest burdens. With that, she disappeared down the hall, leaving the warmth of her presence lingering in the air. Maybe she's right. We need to trust ourselves, I finally managed to say, turning back to Stella. But the moment was cut short when another knock echoed through the door, this one more insistent, more urgent. My heart leaped at the sound, as fear intertwined with curiosity. I caught Stella's worried glance and saw the tension gripping my parents' faces. Whoever was behind the door was about to change everything. Do you want me to get it? I asked, taking a hesitant step back towards the door, the air taut with anxiety. No, my father said sharply, his protectiveness palpable. I'll go. He moved toward the door, his steps rushed, as if he believed he could shield us from whatever awaited us outside, although none of us could quite predict what path lay before us. When the door swung open, the figure that stood there was a surprisingly tall man in a dark suit, face shadowed by the brim of a black hat. A chill shivered down my spine, words halting in my throat. Behind him loomed a sleek, black car idling in the street, its presence somehow foreboding. Mr. Harrington, the man spoke, his voice smooth yet chilling. You need to come with me. We have much to discuss. Before my father could respond, the man lifted a hand, revealing a badge glinting in the light. It felt as if the room constricted, the air around us thickening with uncertainty and dread. I exchanged terrified glances with Stella, her eyes wide but defiant, and caught my mother biting her lower lip anxiously. In that moment, I understood that the shadows we had been fleeing were now closing in, and what lay ahead was a path saturated with secrets, trust, and desperation. As we hovered at the precipice, everything I had built this fragile hope upon began to tremble, replaced by a darker reality. What consequences awaited us? And were we truly ready to face the reckoning that loomed like an impenetrable fog, ready to engulf us whole? The chill that followed the man's arrival seeped into the corners of my mind, tainting even the fleeting warmth Mrs. Thompson had left behind. I could see my father's face pale, the tension in his jaw clenching as he faced whatever peril had come knocking at our door. The room seemed to shrink around us, each second stretching into an eternity as we waited for the storm to break. Who are you? My father demanded, his voice firm despite the vulnerability flickering in his eyes. What do you want with me? The man's expression was inscrutable beneath the shadow of his hat. My name is Agent Collins. I'm with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. His words sliced through the uncertainty like a harsh wind. We have reason to believe you and your family have crucial information pertaining to the current investigation into Ethan Rourke and his associates. The mention of Rourke sent a shiver through me. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, echoing the worry I felt as I processed this new information. The man's words filtered through my mind while I struggled to keep pace with the sudden reality materializing before us. Information? My mother's voice quavered, laced with hesitant curiosity. What exactly do you need from us? Your involvement with Rourke puts you at the center of a larger conspiracy, Agent Collins replied, taking a step inside, his presence commanding the room. We need as much detail as you can provide, and we need it now. Stella's eyes widened in alarm. Are you serious? You think we have information that could help? She glanced at me, her brow furrowing. I knew she was wrestling with her own desperation to figure out a way to turn the tide back in our favor. Yes, I do. Your family has been targeted, whether you realize it or not, he said, as if trying to pierce the shadows of our understanding. You need to trust me. Lives depend on it. There was a weight to that statement that threatened to collapse the fragile strength I had been trying to build. Fear swelled within me, the energy coiling tight before bursting into a million frantic pieces. I felt the hollowness of uncertainty echo around me, the worlds of possibility colliding like destructive forces, but there was something oddly compelling about Agent Collins. It wasn't just his authoritative presence, it was the way his eyes flickered with concern, a spark of hope amidst the dark. For a fleeting moment, I imagined us becoming allies in this strange battle, unearthing the truths that had been left buried for too long. If we talk, my father began slowly, weighing the stakes, then we need guarantees. We won't be treated like suspects. Agent Collins nodded, seemingly prepared for this negotiation. You'll have legal protection. My focus is on bringing down Rourke. But what I need is your truth, everything you know about his dealings and how they connect with this family. And what if we can't remember everything? I interjected, anxiety ripping through the quiet resolve in the room. I've only pieced together bits and pieces. That's where we begin, Collins insisted, meeting my stare unflinchingly, his intensity igniting a flicker of courage in my chest. Every detail counts. Even the smallest memory could be vital. My mother exchanged a glance with my father. I could see the debate raging within them. They knew this was not just a run-of-the-mill encounter. There was a chance, however bleak, that we could not only save ourselves but also bring Rourke to his knees. Both thrilling and terrifying, Stella took a tentative step forward. Okay, we want to help, but we need to do this safely. We can't afford any more complications. Rest assured, I've got a team ready to assist you. But time is of the essence. Every moment we wait is a chance for Rourke to slip from our grasp, Collins urged, his tone edging on desperation. As if punctuating his words, the tension in the air grew thick, a storm brewing on the horizon, unseen yet looming ominously, threatening to unleash its fury. In that charged moment, it felt like we were at the edge of a precipice, gazing down into the abyss. All right, my father finally relented, his expression set with determination. Well, share what we can, but we need time and privacy to gather our thoughts. Of course, Agent Collins agreed swiftly, looking at each of us as if we were precious allies in a fight yet unseen. They'll give you a moment to discuss this. He stepped back, allowing the door to close slightly. Grant us a fraction of space amidst the chaos of decisions swirling around us. The room fell silent as we huddled together, the weight of our choice looming heavy over us. All I could think was how close we were to the truth, yet how far away we still felt from safety. My pulse quickened, my heart pounding like a caged bird desperate to break free. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, another series of knocks erupted through the air, relentless and loud. My breath caught in my throat. The moment held its breath, spiraling dangerously as we exchanged horrified glances. Who could it be now? Before I could analyze the breadth of this new anxiety, the door swung open once more, revealing a new figure silhouetted by the uncertainty of the hallway behind them. Ethan Rourke. The voice traveled across the threshold, heavy with the weight of malice and intent. It's time to settle the score. In that moment, everything shifted. Reality distorted, and I could feel the foundations of everything I thought I understood beginning to crumble beneath me as the nightmare clawed its way into the light. The moment Ethan Rourke stepped into our living room, an unbearable dread coiled tightly around my throat, making it hard to breathe. His presence was overwhelming, his eyes glinted with a cold, calculated malice that seemed to consume the light around him. Fear propelled my instincts, urging me to run, yet I remained rooted in place, my heart racing at the thought of what chaos he might unleash upon us. "What do you want, Rourke?" My father's voice trembled slightly, a crack in his facade that sent shards of concern through me. He had always been the protective shield of our family, but now I saw the vulnerability lurking beneath the surface. Rourke's smile was thin and predatory as he scanned the room, soaking in our fear as if it were wine. "I believe, Mr. Thompson, that you and your family have been quite busy lately." He leaned casually against the doorframe, but there was nothing casual about the threat brimming in his expression. "You've got some important information that I'm rather keen on acquiring. Lucky for you, I'm not the FBI." His tone was almost teasing, a perverse mockery of the situation we found ourselves in. At that moment, the breath of hope Agent Collins had ignited within me flickered like a candle in a storm. How could our family survive under the looming shadow of two men on conflicting sides of a treacherous game? Anxiety gnawed my insides as I exchanged horrified glances with Stella. I could see her fear mirrored in my mother's eyes, the paralyzing apprehension that came with being ensnared in a nightmare far from over. "What do you want from us?" My mother's voice trembled, steadied only by the resilience that had anchored her through years of hardship. "Just a little chat, that's all. There's been quite a bit of discussion about your connections, and I thought it might be best to hear it directly from the source," Rourke said with an unsettling nonchalance while his gaze locked onto my father. "We wouldn't want any misunderstandings now, would we?" In the brief silence that followed, I could hear the ticking of the clock, every second weighing heavy like a rock on my chest. My father's gaze shifted to me, a silent plea embedded within his stare. As if he was trying to convey that I should stay silent, to let him handle this. Yet the same thoughts twisted through my mind. What if remaining quiet meant collusion by inaction? KRV, if we didn't act, the darkness would only grow. "Please," he started, but Rourke interrupted, dismissing my father with a wave of his hand, like he would swat away a pesky fly. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The choice is yours." He leaned in closer, invading my personal space, the smell of expensive cologne mixing uncomfortably with the fear flooding the room. "The hard way comes with consequences. You know that, don't you?" As my father steadied himself, his jaw clenched tight, I saw something shift, a flicker of anger igniting behind his eyes. But before he could speak, Agent Collins barreled into the room, commanding attention with an assertive presence that momentarily caught Rourke off guard. "I suggest you leave now, Rourke," Collins declared, his voice steady with authority. "You're outnumbered." Ethan straightened, the amusement fading from his features as he appraised Collins. "One agent against me? You're either foolish or desperate," he spat, the venom in his voice palpable. "Perhaps I'm simply focused on doing my job," Collins responded, unfazed, maintaining a barrier of confidence. "You're not threatening this family any longer." Without warning, Rourke rushed at Collins, their confrontation erupting like a thunderstorm, the tension cracking overhead. Colliding bodies and brusque motions ignited panic. My mother pulled Stella and me behind her, shielding us like a hen guarding its chicks. A chaos unfolded before our eyes, a surreal collision of power, too abstract to grasp in its entirety. Amidst the fray, I felt a strange sense of urgency awaken my instincts. I sprang forward, grasping my father's arm to drench him in my fear and apprehension. "We have to get out," I implored, a desperate plea woven into my words as I strained to comprehend the venturing chaos blooming before us. But just as I turned to usher my family toward the back, an onslaught of police sirens flooded through the neighborhood, staccato bursts of hope edged with dread. "Get against the wall," Rourke snarled, his attention pulled momentarily toward the distant sounds of approaching help. "Collins," I shouted, the fight within me igniting like sparks against flint. "We can't let him go." With that, fate twisted and turned, opening a door I never thought possible. Rourke caught the fear in my eyes and, for the first time, panic flickered across his face. The world around us felt poised and ready to explode, the balance of power was hanging by a thread, and I wondered just how far Rourke would go to secure his secrets. The shrill wail of sirens drew closer, but his dark laugh echoed louder. "They won't find me here. You've made a mistake, Thompson." He spat as he turned to the door. "Prepare to pay." In that moment, we were caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty and desperation, with salvation and destruction rearing their heads, the suspense of our futures threaded together yet shrouded in darkness. What hope remained, if any, clung to resolve as I struggled to fathom what might come next. Let's move! Collins shouted, urgency layering itself into the fabric of my spine as we dashed together, certain only of one thing: everything hinged on choices yet to be made, with danger trailing close behind. The sirens had become a distant echo as we huddled together in the living room, hearts racing and minds racing faster than the chaos that had just unfolded. Agent Collins had left to pursue Rourke, but the atmosphere was thick with an aftermath of uncertainty. I could hardly process what had just happened, the image of my father being threatened mingling with the fading adrenaline that had kept panic at bay. Stella was trembling beside me, her small frame shaking beneath the weight of the horrors we had just witnessed. I placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to express my own fear through a reassuring squeeze. It's okay, I whispered, though I doubted what comfort could entail in such an uncertain world. We're going to be okay. My mother's eyes were glazed, fixed on the spot where Rourke had stood moments before. Aiden, sweetheart, she said, her voice trembling like a delicate leaf trembling in the wind. We need to think about what to do next. We have to leave this place. The vulnerability in her voice struck me, a sharp reminder that beneath her poise, she was just as shaken as the rest of us. As thoughts rushed through my mind, I couldn't help but wonder, where was safe now? Rourke was a ghost lurking in the shadows, and the idea of him still being out there intensified the coil of dread tightening around my chest. We can't just run. Not yet, I argued, injecting defiance into my words. If we leave now, we'll be easy targets. We need to know what he wants and what that means for our family. Just then, a knock echoed through the silence of our home, a gentle but insistent rap against the door that sent chills coursing through me. My mother moved to check the peephole, her hands trembling as she clung to the doorframe. A flicker of hope sparked within me. What if it was help? What if it was Collins returning with a plan? But when she opened the door, the face that stared back was neither reassuring nor familiar. A woman in her 60s stood there, her weathered face shrouded by a wide-brimmed hat that cast shadows across her features. Her voice was steady and warm, in stark contrast to the icy fear that consumed our home. I'm sorry to intrude, she began, her eyes scanning our distraught faces, but I heard the commotion. Is everyone all right? My mother hesitated before inviting the woman inside, her instinct to protect overriding her judgment. We're fine, thank you. We just had a situation. The woman stepped in cautiously, an air of gentleness about her that felt like a balm against the frayed edges of our nerves. I'm Lydia, she introduced, her gaze filled with concern. I live right next door. I couldn't help but notice something was wrong. Something about her presence brought a small flicker of warmth despite the darkness closing in. Even if she wasn't help, she was kindness in a moment when I had almost given in to despair. We're just trying to figure things out, I admitted, grateful to have someone listen, even if only briefly. You're not alone, dear, Lydia said as she moved to sit on the edge of our couch, her reassurance wrapping around me like a well-worn blanket. Sometimes, when chaos erupts, it's the kindness of others that can light the way. As I processed her words, hoping to find solace in their simplicity, I suddenly realized I didn't know how to honor that kindness, how to share our fears without risking further turmoil. How could I accept help when my world felt chaotic? But before I could voice any thoughts, a crash resounded from the back of the house. The noise reverberated through the walls like a thunderclap, jolting our fragile hopes back into panic. What was that? Stella cried, her voice a sharp tremor in the intensity of the moment. Stay behind me. My mother commanded, instinctively shielding us as she moved towards the noise, her heart aflame with a protective resolve. I felt torn, desire battling with fear. Should I follow her into chaos or remain back, shielded and safe? Lydia rose to her feet, her old body moving with surprising agility. You should all stay together, she urged, a commanding presence surprising from someone who seemed so small. Then, without warning, the back door swung open with a clang, and in the doorway stood Agent Collins, ruffled yet determined as he quickly assessed the situation. Rourke's gone, he gasped, but I need to know, did he leave something behind? What do you mean? I shouted, my heart racing. What are you talking about? Evidence. We need to find it fast, Collins replied, his brow furrowed in urgency. He may have left something behind while escaping. Suddenly, my mind reeled as new possibilities unraveled. What secrets did Rourke possess? What would we uncover about ourselves if we dared to seek the truth? The taste of fear mixed with the sweetness of determination. Our family's fate hung delicately on the edge of both. The world felt as though it was holding its breath, suspended in uncertainty, just as I was grappling with choices hovering on the periphery of our reality. "We have to go," I urged without hesitation. "Well, look for what he left. We can't give up now." But just as we prepared to surge into the unknown, Lydia reached out to me, her presence unexpectedly grounding amid all the chaos. "Aiden, powers exist in honesty and connection. Search for the truth, yes, but keep your family close. Let love be the light guiding you through this darkness." Her voice resonated within, intertwining with the growing sense of purpose blossoming inside me. Just as I turned my gaze towards the shadows of despair, the weight of secrets swirled like a storm ready to break upon us once again. A dangerous revelation illuminated the pathways of my heart, a glint of silver hidden just beneath the surface. There was more to this nightmare than I initially believed, and I was willing to face whatever storm came next. Consequences be damned. As we stepped toward the unfolding mystery, my heart pounded with questions unasked. What other truths were buried beneath the wreckage of our lives? And as I clasped my family's hands tightly, I couldn't shake the hollow echo of Rourke's warning. Were we prepared to pay the price of seeking the answers we so desperately craved? The air crackled with tension as Lydia's warm admonition lingered in the space between us like an unspoken promise. Our resolve strengthened. We edged toward the back of the house where Rourke had fled, each creak of the floorboards screaming suspicion. Agent Collins maintained a watchful eye, his brow glistening with an anxious sheen. "Aiden, stick close," he reminded, glancing at my mother. "We don't know if he's gone for good." We moved cautiously, every shadow threatening to leap from the corners of darkness. Stella clung to my side, her small fingers gripping my arm like a life raft against the storm. Lydia positioned herself behind us, her presence a surprisingly resilient shield. In the kitchen, the remnants of our ordinary life lay scattered. A dusting of flowers shimmered across the countertop, the blender still humming softly from an earlier smoothie adventure. My mother's hands shook as she pushed aside a chair, frantic eyes searching for signs of Rourke. "Where could he have looked?" Collins interrupted, pointing toward the back door that swung lazily on its hinges, revealing a trapdoor nestled beneath the kitchen rug. A collective breath caught in our throats. "That's new," my mother whispered, fear threading through her voice as the realization dawned on us. The possibility of a hidden passage brought both dread and a flicker of hope. With a nod from Collins, we moved as a unit, driven by an urgent need to uncover the truth. A knot of anxious anticipation coiled in my gut, though curiosity nagged at me like an insistent puppy. What lay beneath? What did Rourke know, and how deeply had he embedded himself within our lives? Lydia knelt to lift the edge of the rug, revealing protruding handles dusted with neglect. "Aiden, are you sure you want to do this?" she asked, looking up at me through a veil of wisdom and concern. I swallowed hard, a storm of emotions swirling inside, a mixture of honor, fear, and longing. "If not us, then who will confront the darkness?" I replied, my voice steady, barely masking the trepidation that coursed through me. Collins, now on guard, gently pulled at the handles, and with a guttural groan, the door yielded to his strength. Dust exploded like a memory lost to time, swirling in the air around us, the scent of damp earth mixing with uncertainty. "Here we go," he murmured as our gazes pierced the dimness beneath. Together, we descended into the gloom, where whispers tangled with the shadows like a tether to the past. What awaited us in that hidden space? A secret life Rourke had crafted? An answer that could either bind us tighter or sever our already fraying ties? As we went deeper, the weight of unanswered questions bore down, thickening the air around us. Decomposition and years of neglect assaulted our senses. Old furniture lay abandoned in dust, relics of a past life left behind. But as I swept my flashlight across the room, a glimmer caught my eye, metal glinting in a stack of forgotten boxes. "Over here," I called, beckoning my family closer, the thrill of discovery igniting a spark of hope within me. With shaking hands, I pried the boxes open, revealing a trove of documents and photographs buried beneath the remnants of obscurity. And then, there it was, a faded photograph of my father shaking hands with Rourke, both men's smiles painted over dark secrets that lay beneath the surface. My heart raced as I flipped the picture, stunned into silence by the words inked on the back. "Trust is the most powerful weapon." Stella's gasp cut through the darkness. "What is that?" she breathed, clutching my arm with delicate urgency. Before I could answer, the air shifted, the weight of predestined tension settling heavily around us. "What did Rourke want with your father?" Collins mused, his voice low, but the fear creeping into his tone couldn't stay hidden, and just then, our world blew apart once more. A tidal wave of sound erupted from the main house, a cacophony of shattering glass and frantic voices. Panic surged through me like wildfire as the realization crashed over us. We weren't safe. Rourke had returned Aiden. We need to go. My mother shouted, urgency ringing in her voice. But a part of me couldn't look away from the photograph. The implications hung heavy, tethering me to a truth I wasn't ready to confront. In a minute I need to understand. I shouted back, torn between understanding the past and the chaos encroaching on our present. Suddenly, amid the bolting chaos outside, I felt a hand on my shoulder, Lydia's grip steadying me even as fear swept through me anew. Whatever you find, remember it doesn't define you. Stay with your family, love will guide you through, she urged gently. Just as I finally pulled away from that moment of recognition, the door burst open, throwing light into the hidden darkness. And there, silhouetted against the threshold, was Rourke smirking as if he had always known this moment would unfold. I hope you're ready for the truth, he taunted, an unsettling mirth dancing behind his eyes, the kind that set my heart racing anew. My pulse quickened. His words chilled me deeper than the shadows. As chaos erupted once more around us, I found myself standing at a precipice. Would unveiling the past cost us everything? The night surged, a tempest of uncertainty swirling imminently around our family. What was the truth worth, and at what price would I obtain it? As the chaos erupted around us, I felt time fracturing, collapsing upon itself. Rourke's sinister smirk seemed to taunt me, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing the wild clamor that engulfed our home. Fear danced through the cracks of my family, and as I looked to my mother and Stella, I realized that we had reached a threshold, a point of no return. A run. Agent Collins shouted, shoving us toward the far corner of the cellar. His eyes were sharp, framed by the dim light flickering from a bare bulb above us. I could feel dread crawling up my spine as Rourke advanced, a predator stalking its prey, waiting for a single misstep. And not so fast, Rourke growled, stepping forward. You think hiding will save you? This is just the beginning. Ominous shadows cloaked him as he loomed near, and I could feel the darkness closing in. I turned to my family. We have to stick together. I cried out, each word gathering the weight of our shared fear and determination. In that moment, a flicker of defiance ignited in my chest. Behind Rourke's confident facade was the fury of desperation. He was threatened by the truth we were inching closer to uncovering. What do you want from us? Your compliance, Rourke shot back, his expression a cocktail of fury and arrogance. But now that you're digging through the past, I'm afraid we'll have to end this little family reunion. But before he could make a move, Lydia stood firm, stepping forward despite the looming threat. You will not harm them, she declared, her voice surprisingly strong, an unexpected force against the tempest of fear shaping our reality. Rourke paused, eyes narrowing at the old woman who had come uninvited into his dark game. Who do you think you are? He barked, but his posture shifted ever so slightly. The threat of a mere neighbor was undermining his bravado. I'm someone who knows the power of family, Lydia replied, her voice unwavering, warmth radiating from her. And that power is far stronger than any illusion of control you think you possess. Her words pierced the blanket of dread surrounding us, igniting courage that pushed against the suffocating fear. I glanced at my family, and I could see it reflected in their eyes, a flicker of the strength we had fought to recapture amidst the wreckage. Let's go, Collins urged, swooping in to grab my arm and pull me along, drawing the women alongside as Rourke stepped back, unfazed by our solidarity but now visibly rattled by the unexpected force we had mustered against him. We bolted from the cellar, tumbling back into the kitchen, but as we darted for the door, a deafening crash shattered the stillness. Rourke had followed, bringing the malevolence he carried as his shadow. Enough! He roared, blocking our escape. Desperation pooled beneath each exhale as I watched the threat in his eyes deepen, moistening the edges of my resolve. Then, something incredible happened. Rourke seemed to stagger under the weight of his own darkness, as if our shared fear began to morph into something more, something tangible and alive. Go! I screamed, urging my family to escape while I took a stand against him. I'll hold him off. No! Stella screamed, fear pouring from her eyes, but the moment had crystallized. In that instant, I felt the overwhelming urge to protect the people I loved. Rourke's gaze flickered with surprise, his confidence rattled by my defiance. You think you can jeopardize my plans? He challenged, but the edge of his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. That's when I remembered the photograph, the weight of its secret, the evidence of Rourke's past buried beneath the surface of years spent manipulating my family. It's not what you think, I shouted suddenly, the adrenaline pouring through my veins, igniting my voice. You are weaker than you believe. You built your empire on lies, and lies can't withstand the truth. For a fleeting moment, silence reigned in the air, and I could feel a crack snarling beneath Rourke's exterior. The tension shifted again, pushing with ferocity back against his grip as fear washed over him, fear of exposure. Fear of being unmasked after so long. In that visceral moment, I saw a flicker of hope, as my family fell in line behind me, the flickering flame encapsulating all that we had fought for. We were not just fighting for our lives, but for the legacy of every moment shared, countless memories woven together in love, sorrow, and laughter, and now, together. Agent Collins shouted, planting his feet alongside me. The sudden solidarity ignited flames of defiance soaring through the air as we prepared to take a stand together. We were family, the strength to face whatever darkness stood before us. Help is on the way. Collins continued, his voice rising above the rising tension in the room. In that instant, Rourke's bravado cracked as the door burst open behind us, blue lights casting ethereal shadows. FBI! Hands up! A voice boomed, clipping the electric air thriving between us like static. Rourke's frustration morphed into a vicious snarl, the reality of his waning power hitting him like a freight train. You'll regret this. He spat before he turned and bolted, disappearing into the night with the strikes of fate fracturing his carefully orchestrated escape. As the agents swept into the room, I felt the weight of everything we had faced press down swiftly into a nothingness. The adrenaline dissipated, giving way to pure relief surging through my body as I collapsed against my family. We did it, I murmured, glancing at Stella and Lydia, their faces lit with a fierce glow, the strength intertwined unbreakably in that moment. Agent Collins turned to me, a small smile dancing on his lips. Nice work. You showed him what love and family can overcome. In the warmth cocooning us now, it felt like we had shattered the darkness, we had confronted the ghosts of our past and emerged unbroken. Lydia squeezed my hand, her presence grounding me amidst the aftershocks of what had just transpired. You see, dear? Nothing can extinguish the light of truth. It brings connection and love wherever it may roam. I nodded, the weight of our shared experiences heavy yet liberating, the stranglehold of uncertainty loosening its grip at last. Whatever shadows Rourke had nestled away, they would be uncovered eventually. The truth had drawn me into a confrontation I never wanted to face, but now lay declared before me with newfound clarity. We turned to each other, a shared understanding shimmering between us. We were more than survivors, we were warriors rooted in resilience. A family bound not solely by blood but by the choices we made in the eye of the storm. As we stepped outside to meet the dawn blooming vibrantly from the remnants of night, the world shimmered ahead with promise. You never truly know what you're capable of until you stand against the darkness, realizing the warmth of love and truth can still ignite hope on the other side, and in that revelation, I found the final piece, a sense of belonging as profound as the roots of the soil beneath us, reminding me that even in chaos, we can rise. In this tangled web of shadows, we had uncovered our truth, and I smiled as we walked toward the light, knowing that from now on, whatever life threw our way, I would always stand, not alone but together, in unwavering strength. And as the sun rose to greet us, I let it wash over me a promise for all that was yet to come. Because in the heart of the storm, I had learned, we are never defined by our struggles, instead, we are forged in the fire of our collective resilience, walking hand in hand toward a brighter tomorrow.